world, welcome to D&D Beyond. I'm Joe. I'm the content person here at D&D Beyond, and I'm the face you're gonna see on this stuff again until we choose a better face. So I appreciate you for your patience in these face-related times. I'm not the only face here. I am joined by our incredible community manager, Mellie Doucette. Hey, Mellie.
Hey, Joe.
Thanks for being here. This is gonna be a good one. And you know her from Geek and Sundry, and also just the human expression of joy, Amy Dallin.
Thrilled to be back here. Very excited to talk D&D, and also super excited to get to chat with Mellie, because y'all know community managers are superheroes. I'm from the nerd internet. They're worth their weight in gold. Thank you so much for everything you do. Oh my God.
Absolutely. And thank a mod while you're in chat, by the way. That'd be fun.
Yes, thank our mods. We got Aaron, Laura, and Source in chat, and they are amazing.
Thank you, guys. Today, we're going to talk about a couple of fun things, but I want to kick off talking about the idea of failure in D&D. This episode actually inspired by Mellie, who in an unrelated game that we played screwed something up real bad. And
so badly.
It completely changed the course of the session and made things really fun and crazy. So I want to talk about epic failure and why it's not just a good thing, and it shouldn't just be treated as a good thing. It should be actively encouraged in your game and at your table. Encourage failure. So I think so often with D&D, we roll a check, we fail, and that's the end of it, right?
Yeah, somebody else puts up their hand and says, "Can I try it now?"
Exactly. Yeah. Or it's like, okay, well, now two of you can try it at once and roll with advantage, or, however you want to play that. But yeah, exactly. We do the round robin.
It's something that I, as a DM, have struggled with, like learning the process of like, all right, if they don't make it through the door, then I just assumed they would, it's one of those like, oh, what could be fun? So like, I love that this is the topic because it's easy to fall into that.
Yeah. And I do it a lot too. But I think something to remember, to keep in mind as a DM, is that failure is a part of storytelling. It's probably one of the most important parts of storytelling, right? Like, I think if you, and I'm going to pimp the two of you for examples, but I think if you think to your favorite moments in movies and TV and in books and stuff like that, most of those moments are a result of someone blowing it. Most recently and most epically, you don't have on your left if Captain America doesn't blow beating Thanos, right? He failed a couple checks, and now his whole team's dead, or at least KO'd on the ground. And you don't.
There's no stakes, right? If nobody ever fails in these stories, there's not any stakes to go up against. So you're not excited at the end when they succeed, when they finally do the thing. There's no excitement for it because you're like, well, they've been doing the thing this whole time. What's special about this thing?
And I want to know, in chat, what those favorite moments of yours in narrative are, but also you two, like, what are your favorite examples of like failure in stories that you love?
I will say I love basically all extended quest stories are full of things that don't work out. And like, it's interesting because I spent a bunch of time thinking about this topic of trying to figure out which examples map onto what. And I was thinking about the movie Labyrinth, which is, of course, one of these movies where if things had gone right, there would be no movie.
Yes.
As like it's the famous quote from the director of Stagecoach or something where they're like, why don't they just do this? And he's like, because then we wouldn't have a movie. But it's essentially all adventure films and all sort of like labyrinth, like fantasy journey films are full of like, if she had gotten the correct advice about which way to turn, we wouldn't have a movie. Now, I don't know what kind of check that was, whether it was like a really low persuasion check that accidentally backfired, where it's like, instead of a person intentionally misleading you, you did so badly that they think they're helping you and they've given you the worst advice. Like, that would be an interesting way to play that one, right? Or like, if you choose the correct door and you don't fall, then, it always takes you someplace new and interesting, and you have nothing to learn if everything goes smoothly. If Indiana Jones makes every right move, like, then what's your movie about?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, in Last Crusade, great example. Me and my party member are tied to a chair. DM, can I try? Shoot, now I'm losing the exact steps of how the room catches on fire in Last Crusade. But you know what I'm saying? Can I try something? And it's like, no, it failed. Now the room's on fire. Well, now what? And I think the challenge for storytellers and DMs in Dungeons and Dragons is, yes, we're telling a story, but we're also playing a game, right? And so I think in playing a game, I have these stats, and these stats say that I'm good at these things. Therefore, I'm not going to try those things because I would probably fail at those things. And I'm playing a game and I don't want to fail. And I think because of that mindset, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, one of my favorite examples is just the entire movie of The Road to El Dorado, which is just failure after failure after failure. Like, they fail escaping this boat that they've been imprisoned on, but they don't get caught, right? They get lost at sea with no supplies. They fail at convincing the people that they are gods, and this armadillo causes something to happen while they're arguing, and they turn around and now, oh wait, they do believe this. Because if they didn't, the story would end right there. These people would imprison them further, or nothing would happen. But they just fail and fail and fail and are challenged to make interesting decisions and grow as people because of it. Yeah. And the GM of The Road to El Dorado could at any time just been like, well, you failed, and that's it. That's the story. You're killed, and let's roll some new characters. Maybe don't pick a rogue and a bard this time. But instead, they just say, okay, that was a really bad failure. How do I keep this story moving in a way that is exciting for us?
Well, and you reminded me of my favorite. One of my favorite nearest and dearest movies of all time is John Carpenter's Big Trouble in Little China. And Kurt Russell's Jack Burton fails at everything. He fails at everything he does. He's an idiot. Like he has a lucky win in the beginning of the movie. He catches a bottle and says, "Hey, it's all in the reflexes." And then he proceeds to just be bad at everything. For the rest of the movie, he tries to intimidate a bunch of guys by shooting a gun in the air. He fails that check, shoots the ceiling tiles fall and knock him out for the duration of the battle. But I guess maybe the win there is he survives the battle that he would have otherwise surely been murdered by talented martial artists. And then he continues to fail until you have that one moment where he really needs to roll this natural 20, right? And David Lopan throws the knife at him. He somehow succeeds on this check, catches the knife, throws it right back, kills the bad guy. The table that you're playing this D&D game in erupts into cheers because this guy rolls 1s and 5s all the time, right? So this is we're talking a little bit about the why failure is important. I want to talk a little bit about how I think you can start to implement it and how you can start to really think about it and how you can really start encouraging an environment of healthy failure at your table. And I call it fail, but so there are levels of failure, right? If you really want to make that dice roll important, did they need to roll a 15, but they only rolled a 14 to kick down that door? Okay, so it mostly worked, right? So, maybe it worked, but their leg is now stuck in the door and they have to move and fight with a penalty because they have door leg.
Yeah. And we had, I was running descent into Avernus, and they were chasing somebody, and the person got to a secret door and they got through. And then the party's like, oh, we want to pick this lock. Well, they failed. I mean, eventually, give the rogue with proficiency in thieves tools enough time, they're going to get through that door.
Yes.
But what do they lose by the fact that they failed that roll?
What are
they lose the advantage they have on this character. This character's warned other people. Now it's this much more difficult fight that they have to face. So it's interesting, but it's not a brick wall that's just been thrown in front of them.
Yeah, exactly. There's now added stakes, and maybe the makeup of this thing has changed. But And I think you've segged me up perfectly, Mellie. Thank you so much. It's almost like we broadly talked about what the episode was going to be like before we went live. But I love the idea.
Sync, Joe.
Instead of that's how the sausage is made. And by the sausage is made, I email these two 15 minutes before we go live and say, here's what we're doing. So instead of thinking of failure as the end, you failed trying to pick this lock and you're done. Think of it as a beginning. Failure is not an end. It's just things not going quite as planned. A failure can even mean, they still get what they want, but not in quite the way that they intended. And that doesn't always have to lead to comedy. You know, if your table is serious business and more power to you, and like, no, dude, this is like the grim, dark world of this fantasy world I've created, you know, this doesn't always have to be the wacky physical comedy of, the guy kicked down the door and now he's got a door stuck to his leg. You know, this doesn't always have to be played for jokes, you know, so obviously this fits whatever kind of tone you play at a table. But I really think that the more you encourage failure as an avenue to push story, your players are going to slowly pick up on that. And they are going to then start getting very comfortable with the idea of ignoring their stats, ignoring their strengths, and just taking some chances.
Yeah, I think that's something you can throw to your players too. It's something that I learned from Lauren Urban, the previous community manager for D&D Beyond. Love you, Lauren. Something that she did in games that I played with her is that if we got like a critical failure, she didn't tell us what happened. She said, why is this a failure for you? And it gave us an opportunity to like, all right, cool. I'm going to describe this and probably I'm going to hit on something that's important to my character. So some backstory is going to come into this, or I'm going to make something more dramatic that maybe the GM would be like, oh, I don't know if I want to, like, that might be too harsh, but we're willing to do it to ourselves. Like, we're just like, you know what, give me the trauma. I'm here for it. Yeah. And so just throwing it to your players can lead to very interesting and exciting developments in the story too.
And I love that because that also touches on not just how do you let failure inform the story, but in terms of how do you let failure inform your characters. I love what you were saying, Joe, about like, I think there's a lot of reasons that people are reluctant to sort of try things out of the wheelhouses of their characters. Part of it is, you know, especially based on your table and your comfort level and how long you've been playing together, there's a very honestly considerate feeling that some people have where they're sort of like, ooh, if I try this thing and it doesn't work, am I wasting everyone's time? And the truth is that being aware of whether the whole group is trying to do this and just you want to do that, that's a healthy instinct. That can be a good group instinct to have. But if it gets to the point where you're like, oh, no one's willing to try something because they're going to feel judged or like they let the group down, for me, that's a style of play that would be less fun. For me, it is more fun to play with a group where it's sort of like, if you find the right moment and you try it and you understand why your character would try that, then whether it works or doesn't, you've learned something about who you are and demonstrated, like, this is a screenwriter thing, but action reveals character. Not what we say, but what we do. And so what you've tried to do can either make you the kind of person who takes that risk and it works, or make you the kind of person who either nobly attempted something you knew couldn't work, or foolishly attempted something you knew couldn't work. And you get to run with any of those. And like you said, Mellie, if I love the trick of sort of being like, all right, what goes wrong and why, or what do you think might happen? Because it gives people a great opportunity to be like, oh, my hubris got to me again. I'm overconfident and it gets me into trouble. And here's how that plays out this time. And I'm leaning into you, so you know it's okay. And everybody who can sort of then, it gives other people something to do where they're like, you with your overconfidence, but it's something that you opted into as a trait. And then everyone else has more to play with.
Absolutely. And sometimes those big failures from those big decisions lead to a huge amount of stuff for everybody to do. They have all this stuff they can react to. They can play with this new development that has happened.
Plus, and maybe room on fire. Got to deal with it.
Exactly.
I've played characters on shows, you know, that I thought were going to be a completely different person, and then the first time, you know, the first sign of a scuffle, I roll a 1 or a 2 and it's just like, oh, maybe this person's an idiot, you know, maybe they were just really cocky and very, you know, and now I'm looking at this character that I've rolled up in a very different way based on like how they actually are on their feet. But I thought it'd be fun to maybe just put this idea on its feet a little bit, and force the two of you to be very, very creative, and and just really wow the community. So really, what I'm saying is our respectability is on your back.
Okay, cool. Yep. Set us
Great.
up for
Yep.
failure. We're going to lean into it because that's what we're doing.
Exactly. And then we're going to see what opportunities this failure provides us when my boss emails me. So here's the scenario. I love the scenario. So just tried and true, very simple. Obviously, like a very low intelligence barbarian character probably shouldn't be the one drawing a summoning circle and completing a ritual, but the party was split. They're the only person for the job. They fail this massively. What are some ways that we can now translate this as like a fail, but and make this fun, make this chance rewarding for this player?
Well, what else do they summon? If they don't summon what they were trying to get, and also, then you have some. I mean, I would lean towards some weird NPC. You might choose, DMs, you might choose that some monster gets summoned, but I would go with some fae or devil or something. And now we have an opportunity.
Yeah. That was kind of where I was going too. It's like, does this imp get summoned and the imp just takes a liking to the barbarian and now you're stuck with this imp for the duration?
I love it. You've got Mixoplick here. Mixoplick is excited about whatever's going on. That would be great. If you don't go with the wrong summon route, you could always be like, you have managed, and my instincts may be lead comedy, but you've managed to accidentally eat the chalk that you needed to use. So now you both need to do a con save to see whether you're going to get sick to your stomach, and you don't have the materials anymore. Good luck improvising something. What's the next option?
I mean, God, what if by swallowing this, this arcanely blessed chalk, now anytime this barbarian does roll a natural 20 to hit something in the way that his body tenses to do something that strong, he summons something. I don't know.
You get this wild magic effect of your stomach. Like when you get really hangry, the barbarian just summons something.
Mm-hmm. Ultimately the thing that was supposed to be summoned gets summoned. But is maybe not necessarily what was expected, or is maybe not very into cooperating.
Yeah, maybe usually when you summon things, it's kind of like knocking on a door and asking. And when the barbarian did it, it was like you just got pulled into a group chat you never knew about, and you don't know any of these people here, and they don't want to help.
Yeah,
you woke them up at midnight. They were sound asleep. They are unhappy.
Exactly.
They still have their hairnet on, just got out of the shower.
Yeah. And if you need a minute, and this is I think really important advice for DMs too, take a second. Friend, no one is I know when I'm in the chair and I feel like I pause for just a minute, I feel like I'm blowing it, right? And I feel like everyone's like, oh my God, he doesn't have his stuff together. But no, literally no one thinks that but you. Take a minute. If you're like, man, you really blew this one, but I'm so glad you tried it. Hey, okay, what do I want to do? Take that minute and really reward that failure. Don't let failure end at, well, obviously the summoning circle doesn't work because you shouldn't have been trying to do it anyway, and it had a very low chance of success. Don't never, ever let that be the end.
Also, the table reaction, I feel to a DM going, okay, it's usually very positive, right? It's oh, something crazy is gonna happen. We weren't expecting this, so it's gonna be something really off the cuff. And I think people get excited about that moment. So even though as a DM, I'm always panicking, grasping straws. I need beautiful mind numbers. I just see my table getting excited.
There's two things we love: the GM's plan and wrecking the GM's plan. And even if that's that's what we show up for.
Yes.
Oh, exactly.